You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast, episode 16 of season number 4. Sammy Sosa returns to Cubs spring training. Wow. Don't forget to listen, download, review. Most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Follow on all the socials. Fly the W670 on Twitter, Instagram, and Fly the W on Facebook, or email Crawly and I at flythew670 on gmail.com. Crawly, hope you're having a good week. And as the title suggests, something we're going to get into is Sammy Sosa returning to spring training. Surprise yesterday. I believe that was Tuesday when my eyes saw Sammy in full Cub gear talking to our friend Taylor McGregor in the Cubs dugout out in Mesa.
Yeah, it was phenomenal, and it's been a fun week of Cub baseball. But yeah, Sammy was the cherry on the Sunday so far in what's been a pretty awesome spring training. You know, when we talk about all these new players like Kyle Tucker, and when you talk about Matt Boyd, and when we had Rhino out there, and Sutton and Grace and Dunston, and now Sammy, it's been a fun start to spring training, and I think it's really kind of getting Cub fans' hopes up. So yeah.
I think the key now, Crawly, though, is as we do follow this very closely, okay, the spring training games, and we're going to get to this in a minute, but I think something all the listeners and subscribers need to do is take a look and pay close attention to who's getting these reps at third base, because Matt Shaw is not going to Japan. He's not going. There's no way. And if he does go, which I think would be a mistake, there's no way he's playing in Japan. So I don't know if you're not going to play. I don't know why you'd go.
No, I don't think he'll end up going. And again, yeah, we're watching John Birdie and some of the other guys taking reps at third. So it's something to watch. There are important things to pay attention to. Caleb Killian started today. You're just certain guys that are the bubble guys and some of the fill-in players. There's battles going on here in camp. And so it's something that we watch. When we talk about Monday's game and you talk about the players, this is the lineup for the Cubs versus the Padres in Peoria Stadium. Nicky Lopez at short, Bush at first, Turner DHing. How about that? A little Justin Turner first start. Amaya catching, Workman, Jankowski got his first start. Allen, Alcantara, and Triantos at second was the lineup when we came in there. And so, again, you got Justin Turner DHing, Travis Jankowski was playing right. They were making their spring debuts for the Cubs. How did Justin Turner do? He was that classic pesky hitter. He's been in his whole career. Hits a soft single to right in his first at bat. He drew a walk and came around to score during the second at bat, and then he singled to center in his third at bat. So
yeah, more of that, please. Sign me up.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. And that's that quality at bat that he gives you. Like I said, what I like about him is I think he's the Cubs' best pinch hitter on the roster right now.
There you go. That's important. You need one of those. Need one of those. That's good.
He's a guy that is not. He can come on whenever. He can be cold. He can not. It's something. It's not a skill everyone possesses, and he does. So it's a good add to the team. When you think about Cubs teams in the past, sometimes they're forgotten. Those guys that could, hit off the bench, like LaStella for the 2016 team, or just, Lenny Harris, I think in 2003. There's just guys that you may not remember 100%, but they do play an important role. Now, when we watch this game, two guys that were starting were recently signed depth outfielders, right? So we mentioned Janikowski starting in right. Greg Allen got the start in left. And you don't think the Cubs are going to keep both of these guys. So it's going to be a battle, like I said, that we're going to watch play out during spring training. They did not make it easy to make a decision on Monday. Allen was on base all three times and hit a triple, drew a walk. He also has a lot of speed, Dustin, and that's the thing I'm kind of looking at this team too, is there are some guys that can run. Janikowski is another one of those guys that can give you some good at-bats. He was 2 for 3 with an RBI single to score Justin Turner. It was Janikowski and Allen that were the catalyst for the Cubs' big 5-run sixth inning on Monday. Janikowski had an infield single to third, and Allen had a ball deflect off the pitcher. Runners at first and second for the Jaguar, Kevin Alcantara, who hit a double to score Janikowski. Allen scored on a ground out, and Michael Bush hit a 3-run homer to cap off the inning. The offense scored 10 runs on 15 hits. We talked about Allen and Janikowski and Turner and Bush. Nicky Lopez was 2 for 3 with a walk, and Miguel Amaya 3 for 4. More interesting to me, though, was the pitching side. We had a lot of debuts. Matt Boyd started for the Cubs. He pitched 2 innings, gave up no runs, 2 hits, 2 Ks, and 2 walks. This is Boyd's first full season since coming back from Tommy John surgery. He signed late with Cleveland in the 24 season, had a 2.72 ERA in 8 starts, and he pitched in 3 postseason games for the Guardians. Another good thing to see, Dustin, Ben Brown took the mound for the first time since June 8th. When he would have to go on the IL with a neck strain. He pitched 2 innings, giving up 2 runs on 5 hits, no walks, and 2 Ks. He did give up a 2-run blast to Igwe Rosario. But, Dustin, how good was it to see Ben Brown back on the mound?
Awesome. Really awesome. Really great.
And, we're getting more reports about, what was happening with his neck, and it looks like it's not anything that's going to be a consistent problem. And so that was good news as well. Another guy that we talked about how impressed we were on in his last outing in spring training was non-roster invitee Brad Keller, right? He did really well in that first start, the first game he played in. This was his second game that he appeared in, and he continues to open eyes. He pitched 2 scoreless innings, not giving up a hit or a walk. He had 1 strikeout, and he's sitting between 95 and 97. Trying not to get too ahead of myself, but this is definitely one of my favorite stories and one that I'm really going to be watching throughout camp. When a guy can add 2 to 3 miles per hour on his fastball, it changes everything.
Oh, really something to follow for sure. No doubt about it. It's great.
And a team that needs gas in the bullpen, this is, a really good guy to have. Daniel Palencia, he's another guy that throws gas, but still he hasn't been able at the major league level to show that he can throw it consistently in the zone. He has trouble with walks.
Yep, that's always been an issue. Yes, correct.
So until he can show that he can consistently, not give up walks out of the bullpen, Brad Keller's another nice option to have. And so Tyson Miller made his debut. He struggled a little bit with his command. He walked the first 2 batters he faced on 8 pitches and then fell behind 2-0 before finding the strike zone. Dustin, 10 straight balls for those of you keeping score at home. So hopefully he's a little sharper next time out. And again, the Cubs won 10-5 and moved to 5-0 in Mesa for the first time since 1995. On Tuesday, Dustin, the D-backs came into town, we got to play the Diamondbacks. A lot of starters here: Happ, Tucker, Suzuki, Swanson, PCA, Carson Kelly, John Birdie getting third. You were asking about that third base. Vidal Brujan, second base, and Jonathan Long at first. We're going to talk a little bit later about Sammy Sosa, but that was the game that he did appear in. We're used to the Cubs scoring a lot of runs, 6 or more runs in their first 5 victories. We're getting spoiled, but the Cubs did win this one 4-2. Pitching was really the story. Jameson Taillon made his spring debut. He retired the first 5 batters he faced before giving up a solo home run to Geraldo Perdomo to make it 1-0 D-backs. Taillon would give up a double to the next batter, old friend and Cub Ildemaro Vargas, before ending the inning and his day with a strikeout. 2 innings of work for JMO. He gave up 1 run on 2 hits, no walks, 2 Ks. We got to see Ryan Brazier out of the pen next to making his Cubs debut. They picked up Brazier from the Dodgers. He pitched a clean inning with a strikeout. Some other strong performances we saw were Julian Merriweather, who gave up no hits.
Yeah, that was nice to see, huh?
2 strikeouts, Dustin. So another guy with gas to go along with Keller potentially and hopefully Palencia. Porter Hodge, he keeps it up. No hits, 1 strikeout. And Eli Morgan.
He looks good out there. He looks fit, man. He looks really fit.
Yeah, he looks comfortable. And like I said, it's just the depth in the bullpen that you're excited about. And another guy that the Cubs got, Eli Morgan, gave up no hits and had 2 strikeouts. Cody Petit struggled again. He's been a starter most of his career. I don't see him making this roster or this team right out of camp. But, I think they're going to give him a chance to learn how to start. But he gave up 1 run on 2 hits and 1 walk. The offense scored 4 runs on 7 hits. The D-back pitchers wanted no part of Kyle Tucker. They walked him 3 times. The Cubs were down 2-0 in the 5th before Carson Kelly and Vidal Brujan hit solo home runs to tie the game up. That takes us to the bottom of the 6th. 1 out, PCA singles. Dustin, he then steals second. The throw ends up in between the infielders and center fielder. The second baseman can't make the play. The center fielder boots the ball. Pete turns on the jets between third and home. The catcher doesn't make the catch as it comes in. Pete scores all the way from first base. The fear,
little league style almost, right?
Right. And I'm, the fear that PCA puts in the opposing defenders, he forces errors. The catcher has to throw quickly because he knows he doesn't have a lot of time. The throw isn't great. Everyone's now trying to run so he doesn't take any more bases. That causes more errors. And now you got to rush the throw home to try to get him. It doesn't happen. To me, Dustin, he is the most electric Cub since Javier Baez.
Yeah, that's a great comp. Now let's hope it doesn't end the same way, but that is a fantastic comp, Crawly.
Yeah, and he's just fun to watch. Like whether you're talking
Well, he's
about
fun, right? I mean, that's the key. He's fun.
right.
Fun.
And I will tell you, when we talk about Kyle Tucker, he is going to be probably one of the best players we've seen in a long time, but he's just not electric. Like PCA's electric. He's just must see, must watch. Just what is he going to do next? Who knows? A lot of fun. I love it. But Dustin, surprisingly enough, the Cubs, here we are on Wednesday, and they still haven't lost a game. They managed to pull this one out. They didn't fly the W, but they fly the T. And because of that, the Cubs are still undefeated, 6-0-1.
6-0-1 sounds a hell of a lot better than 6-1-0, Crawly. I'll take it.
It started out good for Shota Imanaga. He gets in there and he gets 2 strikeouts. And then Matt Chapman walks. But what frustrates me, Dustin, is the pitch was a strike. And there's no ABS in San Francisco. So I am now at the point where I'm spoiled. I want ABS all games now. I'm ready now. I'm sitting there tapping my helmet. It didn't cost him anything, but in the end, in the bottom of the second, he gives up a double and then a homer to make it 2-1. And then we get into the third inning. He hits Jung-Hoo Lee with a pitch. Willie Adames singled, and Jung-Hoo Lee moves to third. He gets Matt Chapman to strike out, but then he throws a wild pitch, allowing Adames to score. And then he gets Gerard Encarnacion to strike out for another strikeout. So we were talking about this earlier. When we look at the numbers for Imanaga, 2.2, gave up 3 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, 6 Ks, but that shouldn't have been a walk. 6 Ks, and he gave up that home run. So again, not bad. When you look at it, especially that was his first outing. He was supposed to start
outing, right? Yeah, first outing.
He was supposed to start against the Dodgers in the second game of spring training, but they didn't want him to, or the first game, one of the two, but they didn't want him because they didn't want the Dodgers seeing him before the Tokyo series. So that's why it took a little while to get him a start. He pitched a sim game earlier. And so that's kind of where it goes there. So it was, again, a good start for Imanaga. I had no problem with it. When we look at some of the other pitching lines here for the Cubs, Caleb Thielbar was in. He got 2 strikeouts and a walk. Caleb Killian, again, this is a guy that I want to have a good spring. He went 2 innings, gave up 3 hits, 1 earned run. He had 2 Ks. But again, this is a deep lineup. I don't think Caleb hasn't really, it's going to be really hard for him to break with the team on this one here. Now, as far as the offense is concerned, Dustin, as far, the starters, we looked at it. The Cubs in the first inning, they load the bases with no outs. And they don't score a single run. You're just sitting there going like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, one of our favorite stats on the Fly the W, the runners in scoring position stat, right?
Yeah, Jordan Hicks was able to kind of wiggle out of any more damage. And so that was an opportunity missed right there. The Cubs did get on the board in the second inning. Kevin Alcantara walked. Ben Cowles, who I really, really like, he doubled on a line drive, moved Alcantara to third. And then Michael Busch reaches on a fielding error, which allowed Alcantara to score. So that was a run there. But when you look at the Cubs offensively, they were, like I said, the second straight day in the row. Nicky Lopez looked good, 2 for 2. Michael Busch, 0 for 2, but he reached on that error. And he also drew a walk. Justin Turner, 0 for 2. Miguel Amaya, 0 for 3. Gage Workman, 0 for 3. Vidal Brujan, 1 for 2. And so luckily for the Cubs, right, they're down in this one 4-1. But in the 8th inning, the offense erupts. So we talked about this before. They have a lot of depth and a lot of young guys that are hungry. And so that's the fun thing, is watching guys who you may not be familiar with, like Dixon Machado or Jonathan Long or Greg Allen. Greg Allen homers again. So, that he's the one that hits the homer, and he's someone competing for that final outfield spot, him and Janikowski. So for Greg Allen, put another little star next to him, and you're just kind of, again, watching these battles.
Yep. So we'll keep an eye out on that one. Also, Crawly, I mentioned it up at the beginning, but Sammy Sosa at the ballpark, I mean, in a Cubs uniform, did you think that was coming? That really caught me off guard. I thought Sammy was back in Miami or back in the Dominican, and the next time we'd see or hear from Sammy was whenever it is they're going to have the official little shindig for him at Wrigley Field. So this was something that caught me off guard, and I'm happy to see it. How about you?
I was thrilled to see it, and I will tell you this: I didn't know when he was going to come out. This is a weird spring because it started earlier, and you got the Japan Tokyo series, and so you have a lot of guys coming in at different times. But no, I did not have Sammy Sosa coming to Cubs spring training for the first time since 2004. Back then,
in the dugout, talking to hitters, really cool. Just really cool.
Yeah, back when Sammy was around the last time, the Cubs played at Hohokam Park. And so this was his first opportunity to see Sloan Park. And Sammy's missed so much in the 21 years that he's been gone. If you know Hohokam Park compared to Sloan Park, it's like a Motel 6 versus the Ritz-Carlton. It's completely different. And I would love to hear what Sammy thinks about the facilities. But like you said, walking down the path, I saw him, Dustin, stop at the Club 410. I was freaking out. My FOMO off the charts. Like you said, he's talking to the guys
Hold on, let's let that breathe a second. Your FOMO off the charts. I love it.
Yeah, fear of missing out, man. When I see something exciting, I want to be there, and that was definitely to me exciting. But taking a look right here, what a great picture of Sammy smiling with Vidal Brujan. He's talking to Kevin Alcantara. Just Dustin, if you know, I've had a chance to talk to Sammy, and and I've been at a couple of the Q&As that he's been at Club 400 when Top Shelf Cards had him out, and Justin Roman did the Q&A. He just missed it so much, and he missed baseball in general, and in particular Cubs baseball. So to be back in the uniform with the guys in the dugout, how awesome! And he did the interview with Taylor McGregor, and I thought the interview went well.
Yeah, fun interview. Mm-hmm.
Fun interview. One player in particular, though, Vidal Brujan, talked about the impact of having Sammy and Kemp. And there's a fantastic article by Andy Martinez on Marquee's website. But Brujan is from the same hometown as Sammy, San Pedro de Macorís in the Dominican Republic. So Sammy has invested a lot of money into his hometown, and just in general is still a legend in the Dominican Republic.
As he should be.
Right. Even if guys like Kevin Alcantara, I heard you guys talking this morning, even though they weren't around when he was hitting 60 home runs 3 seasons in a row, 3 seasons, he is well respected in Latin America. And so this is the quote that came from the article. Honestly, that the word from a great person and a great talent like Sammy Sosa helps you so much. It programs you to bring out the good ball player that's inside of you. I understand that the words he gave me were key for that at bat. He hit a home run after talking to Sammy Sosa and did the little Sosa hop. He was giving me some hitting tips and how to drop, how I have to charge towards a pitch. Honestly, he gave me results, and that's what's important. He said that's going to help so many ball players, the Latino players, just as much as the Americans, the whole team. It's a good option to have. And Dustin, what I'm going to tell you, Sammy in the interview was talking about how he knows hitting. And, he was talking about it, but English is still a second language. And I promise you that Sammy was talking to the Latino players, and I know he had good insights for them. I've talked to Julian Martinez, his former hitting coach. Sammy knows a lot about hitting. And everyone can sit there and make their judgments about how Sammy achieved everything he achieved. A lot of people were doing a lot of things in the 90s, Dustin. We're not going to sugarcoat that at all. But at the same time, nobody was hitting 60 home runs for 3 seasons. Nobody did that. I don't care who it was. And so he knows how to hit, and to be able to talk to the Latino players in their native languages makes a huge, huge difference. And I think would be a huge, huge help for the Cubs. And again, it made this old Cub cry a little bit, a little tear in my eye just to see Sammy again back in there smiling, enjoying himself. He even did the heart tap and everything after the interview was over. Just how do you not love it if you're a Cub fan? I'm sorry. If you don't, then you're just crabby. I don't know what to say.
Yep, that's get off my lawn if you're not into that. Yep, very, very cool. And we've got some injury news to update everybody about.
Well, not a lot of injury news, but we do have roster moves. We talked about Alex Canario being DFA'd to make room for Justin Turner. Mm-hmm. Since then, Canario made it through waivers, and the Cubs traded him to the Mets for cash considerations. Then on Wednesday, when we're recording this today, the Cubs made their first rounds of cuts and camps. There are no surprises here.
Yep.
no surprises. 3 of the 4 players cut have injuries. Outfielder Owen Casey has a left groin strain. Outfielder Brett Bateman was cut. He has a right hamate surgery that he's going through. And pitcher Brandon Birdsell's recovering from a lat strain. So they are all cut from big league camp. We know Owen Casey was assigned to the AAA Cubs. So that they know, and then the other guys were just assigned to minor league camp. So they don't know where those other 3 guys are going to start the season. They know Owen Casey is going to start in Iowa. There's no doubt about that. Antonio Santos was a right-handed pitcher who had a good season playing for the Pericos de Puebla in the Mexican League this winter and got a spring training invite. He's going to return to minor league camp as well, but we'll see if he is a guy that goes to the minors or is picked up by another team. So those are the roster cuts that we have. And, there's going to be some more roster cuts coming up in the future. So we'll wait and see what happens.
This is the Fly the W670 podcast, season 4, episode 16. Sammy Sosa returns to Cubs spring training. Don't forget to leave us one of those 5-star reviews in this segment. Crawly talks to the new play-by-play broadcaster of your Iowa Cubs about his career in broadcasting, his knowledge of Cubs prospects, and what he looks forward to this season calling games for the Cubs.
Joining me now on the Fly the W podcast, I am happy to have on Jason Kempf. He is the new play-by-play voice of your Iowa Cubs. Jason, how you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Very excited to be here and to start to experience what I know is going to be an outstanding season and all that goes with it.
Now, when did you find out that you were going to be the broadcaster of the Iowa Cubs, and did you have to keep it under wraps for a little while? What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was quite the process. I knew the job was open, but it hadn't been necessarily official yet. So it was a process waiting for that to officially go through the channels and then actually applying and going through the interview process. But I put in 1 week in the office as of Tuesday. So I think I found out about 3 weeks ago. It took me a couple of weeks to pack everything up in Charleston, South Carolina, where I was. And we made the drive up here, my wife, a 2-year-old, and a dog. So it was an adventure, but finally starting to settle in a little bit.
And for you being in Iowa, I mean, you're a lot closer to your home. You grew up in Johnsburg in Wisconsin, and you went to the University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh. Mm-hmm. When you were young, what got you into baseball? Was there a certain team or a certain player that made you say, hey, that's what I want to do?
I don't know that there was a certain moment or player. My dad always played until he was like 40 years old. He played town ball. So every Sunday is when they played. I was at the ballpark the entire time. There was always a game on TV. But obviously growing up in Wisconsin, Bob Uecker was everywhere. And I think just the way that he called the game and was having fun, and there was comedy, and whether you cared about the game or not, you were going to be entertained. That was kind of the thing that made me specifically be interested in broadcasting if I wasn't good enough to play. But baseball is kind of big out in the farm country of Wisconsin, where I'm from. There's not a lot else going on besides going to the ball diamond. So that's what we did.
Yeah, I mean, Bob Uecker, rest his soul, he just passed away. But, I think for Cub fans to understand that he's basically the equivalent of your Harry Carey. I mean, he was doing it forever. He was a part of the fabric of Wisconsin baseball. And I go to Wisconsin a lot, and I would sit there. If there was no Cubs game on the radio, I'd turn on WTMJ and then listen to Bob Uecker calling. I mean, to be able to do it solo, I mean, without a partner sometimes, I mean, that is just that's a different beast altogether.
Yeah, and there were obviously some bad years that he was broadcasting. There wasn't a lot of winning baseball, but he managed to show up every day. And you look at the guys who have worked with him, obviously Pat Hughes, Jim Powell, Joe Block. All of these guys have gone on, Corey Provis, that are now lead broadcasters or were lead broadcasters in Major League Baseball. And I haven't heard anybody say anything negative about their time with Uke. So obviously that news caught everybody off guard a little bit a few weeks ago, but I mean, just an incredible guy that you can't really emulate as a broadcaster. You just have to appreciate what he did and try and take pieces of his style and incorporate them here and there.
Now, as far as it goes, when did you get your first job in the minor leagues? When did you break in?
It was 2013, so it was right after college. I had applied for a number of internships, kind of the way it goes now. Unless you get really lucky, you're a number 2 somewhere a media relations assistant, something along those lines. And I applied for a few different places, interviewed with 4 or 5 teams, which ironically, I ended up working full-time with all 5 of the teams I interviewed with that first year later in my life. But I ended up with the St. Paul Saints, who were at the time independent and playing in an old Midway Stadium outside of downtown, not the setup they have right now in the International League. But I learned from Sean Aronson, who's the Saints broadcaster. He made his big league debut with the Twins last year. And it was a really cool experience because it was about so much more than baseball. And I think that's what kind of made me a well-rounded minor league baseball employee, which is what it often takes to get your first job. And then you start to meet people and you can make connections from there.
Now, you have spent time in a couple of different affiliates. You've been with the Wichita Wingnuts, and then the Dayton Dragons and the River Bandits, the Quad City River Bandits. And so when I look at that right there, I'm saying to myself, wait a sec, you already worked for 2 Cubs minor league affiliates. As far as the Dayton is concerned, right? The Dragons?
Well, they were a Reds affiliate, but
Right.
we played South Bend all the time. And so that was I really love South Bend and going there, just the atmosphere and how they've kind of recreated what's going on in Chicago. And then in Quad Cities, same thing. We played South Bend all the time. It was an Astros affiliate at the time. And that was kind of when they were in the midst of their World Series runs, whatever you want to say about those few years. The minor league guys weren't involved, but it was a lot of guys there that were part of their latest runs, like Jeremy Pena, Christian Javier, and those guys. So every place has a special, spot in my mind and memories from there.
So the Dayton Dragons, they started out as an Expos team in Rockford, Illinois. Then they were the Royals, and then from 95 to 98, they were a Cubs affiliate.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and then when I looked at it too with Quad City, I'm saying to myself that I know that was a Cubs affiliate as well. And so, it was a Cubs affiliate from 1979 to 1984. I have right here in my Cubs bobblehead collection a Quad Cities.
There you go.
Sean Dunston bobblehead right here. And so it really is I think it was destiny that you were bound to one day be in a Cubs affiliate again in the Iowa Cubs. And if you've ever been to Iowa, and you've been there for a few days now, but it really has just like a special feel. The people are so great. Principal Park is so awesome right there on a river. How excited were you to settle your family down there, and how familiar are you starting to get with the park now?
Yeah, we were really excited. As you mentioned, a lot closer to home. It was an 18-hour drive from where I'm from in Wisconsin to Charleston, about as far as you can get to the east. And then now we're 5.5, 6 hours away, which is a lot better. And family can come down. We can make trips home during the off season. And it just makes things a lot easier, especially while I'm traveling on the road on my wife and my daughter. To see people that they know a lot more often is really cool. And showing up at Principal Park for the first time, like I had lived in Iowa when I was in Quad Cities, but never made it to Des Moines. And you're really impressed after spending a few years in Single A. AAA Stadium is much larger, and the amount of seats and the suites and the press box, everything is first class. And Randy Wayhofer, our assistant GM, came and gave me a tour the day before I started on President's Day. So there was nobody else there. Got to see the clubhouses, the workout facility, and just a fantastic place. They've redone the clubhouses here in the last couple of years. So it's a pretty awesome setup, and I can't wait to see it, in action in exactly 30 days now.
Now, your last job was with the Charleston River Dogs, and that's in the Carolina League, and you got that job in 2020. Now, of all the times to kind of get the job, how hard was it for you that 2020 year? And you got to call some pretty good seasons for Charleston.
Yeah, so we were talking about how excited I was to move here with my family to Des Moines. We were really excited to go to Charleston. We had never really been outside of the Midwest. So we get there, and I work in the office for probably 25 days. And that's when the Big Ten tournament got canceled. And then you were like, okay, this could be a problem. And then you're into April, and they're like, we're going to postpone the season. Everything got pushed back. And all of a sudden, I was furloughed, so I didn't have a regular paycheck. My wife works in a hospital system at that time. They weren't hiring anybody. So we kind of hunkered down for a year, enjoyed some more time with just us than we have ever before during the summer, and did some things we normally couldn't do. But I'm glad to be on the other side of that, certainly after a tough start there in Charleston. And like you said, the first 3 years I was there, we won the Carolina League championship. They hadn't won a championship in 99 years. And my first year we won, and then we won again, and then we won again. And it was ironic because Myrtle Beach was always our number one rival. They're right down the road. They were always really good when you had PCA, when James Triantos was there, the Jaguar was there. And I know firsthand how much our coaching staff hated facing those guys. So it became kind of a fun rivalry, and Sam and I would go back and forth, Sam Wiederhaft, and just talk trash a little bit. And luckily we got the best of him a few times in a row.
Yeah. And when you get to call those championship games, what was it like for you as far as the first time that you were able to call that? Did you kind of have it prepared out in your mind in advance, like kind of what you were going to say, or are you just going to roll with it?
I don't think you can, if you have it prepared, you're not doing justice to the moment. So I had an idea of a couple of things I wanted to say because it had been nearly a century. And I think I ended up saying when we won the first one that it took a long time to play baseball again. I had the number of days from the end of the 2019 season and then the cancellation of 2020 into 2021. I had the number of days. It was like 600 days to play baseball. And in the end, it was worth the wait or something like that. But I didn't have it scripted. I just wrote a few things down that I wanted to touch on at some point in the first 2 minutes or so after the final out. And fortunately, we had won the first 2 games of a best-of-5 series, then lost the next 2, but we scored 7 runs in the first inning of the decisive game. So I had some time to realize, okay, we're probably going to find a way to win this. And after that, the second and the third one were a lot easier and more comfortable.
So you got to call basically 3 championships. So my guess is now that you're here with the Iowa Cubs, you'll be able to call a few more. You are the lucky voice that's going to get the Iowa Cubs that championship right there. And you mentioned, you were in the same league with Myrtle Beach and Sam, and Sam is just absolutely great.
Yeah.
And you got to know probably, I'm sure, a lot of the South Bend broadcasters and everything, but the whole family, when you talk about Sam and Brendan King and Mick Gillespie, all the guys, I mean, it's just a really great family. And hopefully, next year you'll come to Chicago for Cubs convention, and then you'll really see what the Cubs family is like.
Yeah, that's the plan. I can't wait to be able to do that hopefully next winter. And Sam is one of my best friends in baseball. Alex Cohen was one of my best friends in baseball. He's one of my best friends since I met him, I think, back in 2016 when he was still in Bowling Green, which was ironically a Rays affiliate back then when he was there. So there's all kinds of connections. And it's really cool how everybody, to a man or a woman, says that being part of the Cubs organization is special. And from the outside, being from the Midwest, I know, but being on the inside of it, the last 2 or 3 days since it was announced publicly have been, like I said before, a whirlwind.
Now, I know it's been tradition with all the affiliates, all the new broadcast voices, that we do a shot of Malort together. Do you know what Malort is?
I've heard of it.
Okay.
I've heard of it.
Just double checking here. It's kind of like an official thing that we do every year at Lizzie McNeil's during the convention. We'll make sure that you get taken care of when it comes to that. But, your good friend Alex Cohen has left you with an incredible Iowa Cubs team. And not only did he, is that just an incredible team, a whole slew of top 30 prospects on the team. But like you said earlier, you got to know a lot of these prospects when they were playing in Myrtle Beach. Tell us a little bit about some of the Cubs prospects and what you remember. I'll throw a couple names out. You said PCA. What were your first impressions of PCA?
Yeah, that was the name right away. Our bench coach in Charleston that year had coached PCA with Team USA, the high school team. So he told us, this kid is legit. He's wild. He has a big personality. And we played him early in the year, and I think he got off to a little bit of a slow start that first year. And then when we left town, all of a sudden, he went absolutely insane. But I remember, he was sitting at the top of the order, and it was just this skinny kid at the time, but you couldn't get him out, and he was electric on the bases. And he didn't mind talking to the other team a little bit and letting them know that he had a pretty good feel for what was going on. And just one of those guys that, when you're in a long season in single A and sometimes things are a grind and new players are coming in and out, when you could watch a guy like that play, you were excited to go to the ballpark and never know what's going to happen.
Now, when I went to Myrtle Beach, one guy that I wasn't expecting, like sometimes you look down and you're like, okay, I want to see this guy. All of a sudden, I saw Moises Ballesteros, and I was like, oh man, this kid's got something, like even just his presence, something about him was different than everyone else on the field. What do you remember about Moises?
He was another guy that was just a kid, and you're like, you see his numbers as you're getting ready to play Myrtle Beach, and he's hitting 360, 370, and you're thinking, how is he doing that? And then you see him take batting practice. And again, he's physically imposing, just a big guy, but the bat and the hands were so quick. And the way there's guys when you're in the ballpark and it's empty, that the sound of their bat hitting the ball is different than anybody else's. And I think he was one of those guys. And it was kind of him and Felix Stevens was there at the same time. And they were both just monstrous human beings at 18 and 19 and 17 years old. And you're like, I don't remember guys being that big in their teens when I was that age.
Right. Now, one guy that I interviewed when he was in Myrtle Beach and it was fresh out of high school was James Triantos. And he was a guy that, to me, he's just an interest. People forget how young he still is. He's only 22, but he feels like he's been in the Cubs system forever.
He was, and it was funny because there were other guys at the time. And obviously he's been a guy that's made himself very notable and a name. But at the time, he was sort of on the periphery of being a name. But there were other guys on their team the year he was in Myrtle Beach who you were like, okay, those are the guys that are the quote unquote headliners. But every day he was playing third base, 18, 19 years old, doing a great job defensively, and then just pesky, right? Like you couldn't strike him out, put the bat on the ball, some extra base hits mixed in. And Buddy Bailey, who had been around for the longest time, was managing these young, exciting kids. And it was kind of a cool situation to watch.
Now you mentioned Kevin Alcantara and when you see him like that, he's another one that has like that star quality. Like you just are like, oh my God, he's just an impressive human being.
I saw him for the first time when he started doing the Jaguar around second when he hit a home run. And as the visiting team or the opposite team, you didn't know the story. So I'm like, what is he doing exactly when he's rounding the bases? So Sam quickly informed me what it was. Yep, there you go. And I'll tell you this, I'm excited to be able to be excited when he hits a baseball the way he does, as opposed to dreading when he came to the plate when I was working for the other team, because he was phenomenal. And I remember a game in Charleston, he tried to make a charging catch on a sinking line drive, and it got lost in the lights and it hit him in the forehead and he went down and everybody's like, oh my God. And then he got up and was at the plate the next inning. So a slight guy, but very tall and lanky and the long levers. But man, is he fun to watch play baseball. And I'm excited to do it again, wearing the same colors that I am.
Nice. We talked about Triantos. Let's talk about his fellow Ginger, Owen Casey, the Canadian. What do you remember from Owen's time in the Carolina League?
I remember some impressive contact and some long, towering fly balls or home runs. And Myrtle Beach has that bleacher section behind left field that a lot of home run balls in there, but he had a couple over in batting practice, and during the games he would run into one. And I think it was kind of just before he exploded when I saw him, but you could tell that there was something there. Again, just the way he was in the batter's box and the presence that he showed at the plate, that, not everybody was going to be able to get to the point where he was going to be at some point.
Now, a couple of guys that really passed through Myrtle Beach. I don't know how much you got to see them, but hopefully going to be big part of the Cubs season in 2025. Matt Shaw, 23 years old, third baseman. The Cubs are obviously going to kind of depend. I don't want to say heavily on him, but he's going to get it looks like third base job is his. What did you get to see from Matt Shaw when he was in the Carolina League?
Unfortunately, I never saw him. He was there for such a short period of time, and we never played Myrtle Beach at that point. But obviously, I've been following how quickly he's risen through the organization, and you're seeing college guys do that now in a way that they didn't used to do it. And the other guy, and obviously he's not a Cubs prospect anymore, but I had the Cam Smith series when he hit a home run in every game of the series, and I'm like, this is insane. But obviously Shaw had a similar impact at a number of stops throughout the organization so far.
And Cam Smith is killing it in spring training too right now. You're just like, oh boy, let's see what happens. Hopefully, like I said, it was all the right decision. If we can keep Kyle Tucker, then it's okay. Oh boy. And did you have a chance to see Cade Horton pitch?
Unfortunately, no. Also, we played Myrtle Beach in Myrtle Beach, the opening series of 22. He was scheduled to throw on Sunday, and Sunday got rained out by torrential downpours like 5 hours before the game. And by the time we came around to play Myrtle Beach again, he was long gone. But obviously a guy that has incredible stuff, and you just hope he's healthy and can't wait to see what he does this year, hopefully at least for a little bit of time in Des Moines.
Are there any other Cubs that I didn't mention that you were just kind of like, okay, this is a guy. This guy has a really good chance of being a successful major leaguer?
Yeah, I think the first year in 2021, Myrtle Beach wasn't a great team that year, but Pablo Aliendo was really impressive. He was sort of their leader that year in an emotional way. He had a couple of big plays, and he was another guy that was very exuberant when he did something. And I think when you're going through a minor league season, you need some of those guys just to keep everybody on their toes and energized. So he was really good. Jefferson Rojas was really impressive. There's some pitchers too. Grant Kipp out of an Ivy League school that just dominated. There's a number of guys. Nick Hall was really good for a guy that wasn't necessarily a huge prospect there in Myrtle Beach. But they've had a number of guys that just do things really well, little things, international guys that can run and hit and play defense and aren't necessarily going to hit for power, but are really, really tough outs, which is what you love to see. Pedro Ramirez is another one of those guys kind of along that line.
So you've been broadcasting now for 10 years. Who do you think, as far as out of all those 10 years, what is a player that you saw that you were like, that later on had just a great MLB career that you were like, wow, I was so privileged to see this guy. I knew right away that this guy was going to be great.
It's a great question. From a River Dogs perspective, Taj Bradley, and he hasn't had a great career yet. He's just getting started, but he was different than anybody else on those pitching staffs, and I think he's going to be the ace for the Rays this year. Actually, I wouldn't call his career great, but it was a Cubs guy at the time in Eloy Jimenez. I thought seeing him in person, I was like, this kid is unreal and just larger than life. The other two were on the same team in Lansing, Bo Bichette and Vlad Guerrero Jr. The ball flies in Lansing, and those two really don't need any help. So when they hit the ball, you're like, come on, this is absolutely ridiculous. But, you know, I was in independent ball early in my career. So when I got to affiliated ball, Tyler Stevenson, the Reds catcher, was really good. And you know, he's not a star in Major League Baseball, but those kind of guys were really fun to watch. And I think 10 years sounds like a long time, but a lot of those guys were 18, so they're still getting into the primes of their career. So I don't know that there's been anybody that has been great to this point yet, but I'm sure in the coming years. Jeremy Pena was with us in Quad Cities. He was really, really good. And obviously he's had a couple of big years. A World Series MVP isn't too bad of an award early in your career.
No. Now I got to ask you basic ballpark questions here. What's your go-to food if you're going to a ballpark? What's your go-to?
Well, I can say this again now that I'm back in the Midwest. I will get a cheese curd anywhere in the world. And it was something that in Charleston, there were a few places that claimed to have Wisconsin cheese curds, and they weren't really Wisconsin cheese curds. Luckily, the River Dogs got some good ones in the last 2 years. But I think I've had 4 or 5 different meals with cheese curds since I got to Des Moines in like 12 days.
Oh yeah. And when you're in Des Moines at Principal Park, you got to try the Salsa King salsa. That's pretty good there. I'm just going to throw that plug in there. And as far as it goes, if you were a ball player right now, what would your walk-up music be?
I think it would be, this is an old song, My Time by Fabulous. It's from the 2010s. My high school walk-up was This Is the Way I Live, which is another old semi-rap song. But I think My Time by Fabulous, it's still a good song. You know, it stays relevant today. Anybody who's playing baseball right now would have no clue what I'm talking about.
All right. Last question for you here. Have you been to Wrigley Field in your lifetime?
Believe it or not, I have not. And the problem is I'm from small town, Wisconsin. going to a game was always a privilege. We just didn't do it all that often. And now that I've been in baseball, it's almost impossible to try and get somewhere unless you're going to do it for that 2 weeks after our season ends and then the big league season. But I'm certainly hoping that I can cross that off here in the very near future. I've been to Great American Ballpark, Target Field, AmFam Field, formerly Miller Park in Milwaukee, but those are the only ones, and then the Trop, of course. So I'm missing a lot of really important ones, and obviously Wrigley is pretty high there on the list, and I'm hopeful to get out there at some point this year.
Well, Jason, we're so super excited to have you in the Cubs family. And, we got a lot of good fans on here really saying about how excited they are here and welcoming you to the Cubs family. There's Steve, Chip Paleo, a bunch of great guys that are just absolutely excited to have you. Our good friend, Rich Biesterfeld, photographer extraordinaire, met you when he was calling the game for Charleston and Myrtle Beach. And so there's a lot of Cub fans super excited for you. Why don't you tell the rest of our listeners where they can follow you on the socials, because they're going to want to follow you right away.
Yeah, I have to get an Instagram. I'll be honest. I haven't had one. I haven't felt like my life was interesting enough, but I think maybe getting this job is the tipping point that'll convince me to do that here in the near future. But on X, it's at JKemp Radio, JKEMP Radio. And we'll have all kinds of fun stuff there, and hoping to give people this year a little bit of a behind the scenes look at the players and their personalities as well. So we have a lot of fun stuff that we're working on in Iowa. And obviously, like we've talked about, it should be a really fun group.
Absolutely. And again, as we say, as Cub fans say, in Des Moines, the city is buzzing. The steak de Burgo, all the fun things that we love about Iowa, and the bait shop, one of my favorite places to go to. Absolutely love it. If you haven't been to Principal Park, I really just can't speak highly enough of what a great organization is and how much fun it is. Chip saying that it's definitely on his bucket list. And so, Jason, welcome to the Cubs family. We're so excited to have you, and thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time.
No, the pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this, and looking forward to meeting you and so many others in person.
Absolutely, my friend. And remember, Malort at CubCon next year.
Sounds good.
This is the Fly the W670 podcast. It is season 4, episode 16. Sammy Sosa returns to Cubs spring training. Don't forget to listen, download, review, subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Time to go around the bases a little bit, little Cubs info and news from around the league. We've got some info on MLB schedule on Fox.
Yeah, on the last episode, we talked about the breakup between ESPN and MLB, but Fox still has baseball games they will televise. Their schedule includes a large number of Cubs games, Dustin. In total, we're going to have 10 games that are going to be on Fox there. So you have the 2 Tokyo games, right? They're going to be on, the first game of the season is going to be on Fox, and the second one's going to be on FS1. Those are the 2 Dodgers games, Tokyo series. 4:26 against the Phillies, 5:10 against the Mets, 6:28 against the Astros, 7:19 against the Red Sox, August 2nd against the Orioles, August 9th against the Cardinals, August 16th against the Pirates, and September 18th against the Reds. So there's going to be a few night games in there, and when they have those night games, it can throw the times a little bit off. So if you got tickets to any of those games, please kind of make sure that you're kind of watching and making sure you're going at the right time.
Yes, that's very important. Very, very important. Those times are different when the national TV gets involved. They're not always your typical times.
Dustin, Marquee has been celebrating its 5th birthday. The network debuted at Cubs Convention in 2020. I remember it clearly. But if you do remember CubsCon that year, the Cubs did not have a deal in place with Comcast, the largest cable provider in the Chicagoland area. Dustin, I remember sitting at the Marquee rollout at CubsCon, and Crane Kenny actually had a big on the big screen, had the Comcast customer service number and said, if you want Comcast, you better start calling. And call I did. Now, obviously, COVID threw the whole season out of whack, and the start of the season and everything. They finally came to an agreement on July 24th, 4 months after the station first came on air. Well, that agreement, Dustin, has ended. And now Comcast wants to put all RSN games, all the regional sport network, Marquee included, on their ultimate tier package, which means that if you want to continue watching the Cubs and Marquee, you're going to have to upgrade your Comcast subscription if you don't have the top tier schedule. Dustin, I mentioned this in the last episode about how this is going to be Rob Manfred's legacy, how he's going to navigate these TV deals, because as of right now, this is a mess. This is awful. We cannot sit here and imagine, like, if the majority of the Chicagoland homes cannot watch Cubs games. Now they do have streaming there, but that means I'm going to have to pay, more money. And it's just like, how much can we pay? How much disposable income do people have to be able to watch baseball games? I don't know.
As I will always say, in this case, for Cub fans and the people subscribing and listening to this podcast, they are always free on 670 The Score and the Odyssey app.
I 100% love it, and I agree with you, but sometimes, too, you like to kick back and watch the game.
I understand it's not exact. I understand that it is not exactly the same. Totally get that. But
and I like doing
it's
both.
an option. It's an option. I do, too. I like a mix and match of it.
Exactly. And so for me, I am frustrated because I'm tired of having to deal with this. I don't want to sit there and have to try to negotiate with cable companies and all this stuff. I just don't know what MLB and Rob Manfred's going to do, because it's not just the Cubs having this problem. It is every regional sports network. And Dustin, if they don't come to an agreement, there's a good possibility that Comcast subscribers, the majority of cable subscribers in the Chicagoland area, will not be able to watch a single, the Cubs, the Bulls, the Blackhawks, or the White Sox. Think of that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that it's actually gotten to this point. Something to definitely keep an eye on. Also, the White Sox could have a potential owner, Winnetka billionaire Justin Ishbia, name involved after he's pulled out of buying a interest in the Twins.
Yeah, the Twins were not happy. They thought a deal was close to being done. They're trying to get new ownership. That situation for the Twins is up in the air, but for White Sox fans, they got to be excited, right?
It's a jolt. Seeing it, and it's a jolt of excitement for Sox fans. I don't think we need to spend too much time on it, but again, I think it's good for baseball when Chicago has two teams that are trying to win. And even though this is a Cubs podcast, and most of 99 times out of 100 I'm polling and pro Cub, I would have hated to see the White Sox leave the area.
Well, here's what I'm going to tell you, right? And I think it was Mully that brought this up. The guy's mansion in Winnetka is worth more than any contract in team history. And so this looks like...
Think about that. Yeah, think about that for a second, right?
Right. But this looks like a succession plan for Jerry. And the afternoon show had AJ Pierzynski, my nemesis, on. And here's what AJ had to say. And of course, he's going to take a dig at the Cubs.
Let's go, baby. What do you mean? How did it hit me? Are you kidding me? How did it hit me? I mean, listen, I love the Twins and I love Minnesota because they were where I came up from and always have a great piece of me. But I want the White Sox to be great, man. If these brothers can come in and buy a larger piece and help up the payroll and pay players and make this team and organization a better thing, then you know what? Let's go, baby. Because Jerry's not going to, as much as this pains me to say, Jerry's not going to own the team forever. And at some point, these guys come in and buy it. And we talked about this today on FT. I think they'd be the second richest owners in baseball behind Stevie Cohen. So, hey, let's go. They can start buying players and buying the superstars, what you need to win in today's game. Yes. Yes, please. You know what they're going to become? What the Cubs should become, a powerhouse in the Central.
Dustin?
Now, hold on. One thing about the whole, and again, he's great for TV and radio and for podcasting, AJ, and I think he would make a fantastic skipper. But Jerry Reinsdorf, you want to talk about a hypocrite? I bet I would lay money that if this was about to be approved or was going to the board of directors of MLB owners, okay, that he would be pounding the table to keep him out of baseball, especially out of the division that his White Sox play in.
I 100% agree.
Now because he wants to buy his team, now it's okay? Shame on you, Jerry Reinsdorf. Shame on you.
You remember that Reinsdorf did everything in his power to keep Mark Cuban from buying the Cubs when the Cubs were up for sale.
Right. So he's not happy about how the Mets changed hands either. He wasn't happy about that.
No, and so he's going to sit there, like you said, being the ultimate hypocrite. And what bothers me is, I have to agree with AJ Pierzynski. That could very much change the landscape and this is why we're bringing it up, because it is MLB news, but it could affect the Cubs too. Could you imagine?
Well, the fact, I mean, they all play basically there is no more American League and National League. Let's just be honest with it.
But this is always, right? Dustin,
So,
for most of our lives, this has been a Cubs town. But the White Sox has been a laughing stock, especially last year when the article came out about the cheap airplane and how cheap everything is there as far as an organization. Imagine if Ishbia comes in there and pulls a Stevie
and
Cole.
runs it like a first-class organization. It takes time. It's not turnkey. You don't change things overnight. But again, young people, right? Young people will gravitate to a winner.
And here's the thing, Dustin. Do you think that if Ishbia comes in there and starts dropping major dollars, do you think that will force the Ricketts ownership to try to up their ante and get rid of all
that's only a good thing, right? That's only a good.
That's the hope, though, that they do that.
Right. No, there's no guarantees. Listen, death and taxes, Crawly. Death and taxes. All right. Upcoming games for our Cubs on the Marquee Network and 670 The Score. And good news, Zach Zaidman is going to be doing some of the games coming up on the Score. The next 3, I believe, that are on the Score.
Yeah, on Thursday, February 27th, they're going to be on at 2:05 on Marquee. Then the weekend, some games on the Score. You have no TV, so that's what we were talking about earlier. 2:05 on Friday against Texas, it'll be on the Score. On Saturday, March 1st against the Guardians, you have 2 games, actually, a split squad at 2:05 on Marquee and the Score, and then a 7:05 game against Kansas City. That is not broadcast anywhere. I'd have to take a look at MLB Network. And then Sunday, March 2nd, 2:05 Cincinnati will be on Marquee. So plenty of Cubs baseball coming up.
Yes, absolutely whetting the appetite. All right, Crawly, that's a wrap. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to that Fly the W podcast. All the socials, Facebook, Instagram. Of course, we're on X, Twitter. Email Crawly and I, flythew670gmail.com. And you can watch us. Oh, yeah. By subscribing to that 670 The Score YouTube channel. Crawly, enjoy the games. Enjoy the weekend. We will be back on Monday with a full recap as the Cubs are getting closer and closer to that long flight to Japan.
All I can say is the Northside baseball team is still undefeated. Go Cubs! Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!